of disease frequency and association. So I'm going to today's presentation now.
Yes.
So this, yeah. So in today's topic, it's a very commonly used methods that we when we are doing any study, we commonly use some epidemiology measures. So that is what this session is intended to tell you. Okay, what are the most commonly used frequency measures, and also the measures of association? How can we interpret those measures? So that is what we are going to do in today's class. So as we know, in healthcare, we deal with vast quantity of clinical data, and it is very difficult to look at the data in a raw form. So usually what we do is we summarize the data, and we have seen in the last few classes how different measures of summarizations like mean, median, mode, and all are applied. And also apart from these mean, median, and mode, when we come to epidemiological data, there are some commonly used measures which gives you an idea about the magnitude of the disease, the distribution or the frequency of the disease. So let's look at those measures in this class. So as we know, the objective of epidemiology is to determine the rate of disease by person, place, and time. Also, we calculate incidence, prevalence, and such measures. And we also try to identify the risk factors in terms of relative risk or odds ratio by using relative risk or odds ratio. So this actually helps in finding out what are the different approaches for disease prevention. Now, coming to these measures are very commonly used in any journal if you take, or any small study or any large study. We very frequently use these measures, and hence it is very important to understand how it is calculated and what is the interpretation of these terms. And I hope that all of you know about these measures, so I don't have to go much in details about the basics of incidence and prevalence and such things. I'll just explain the basic terminologies first, and then I'll go to the measures of association. There we need a little bit of more, I'll do a little more emphasis on association and how association can be calculated, and what are the methods of interpreting it, what are the measures of methods in which we can interpret those particular association and calculating of odds ratios. Those approaches I'll be dealing with today. So we know the definition of epidemiology is study of determinant, distribution, frequency of various health and health related events and applications of the same for the prevention and control of disease. So if you see the diagram below, you can see that epidemiology is deals with understanding of the disease occurrence, then measuring the disease occurrence, measure of effect, and then measure of potential impact. So this is how the flow is. So first we understand disease occurrence, then we measure it, then here the measure of effect comes. So here we measure it using descriptive terms, that's measures of disease frequency. Then measures of effect is in terms of looking at the association, and impact is by looking at what is the impact of particular, if we remove a particular exposure, what will happen, or if you add a particular exposure, what will happen. So that comes under impact. So if you look at the first part, that is measures of disease frequency, there are many measures in which measures of disease frequency, but I'll quickly take you through prevalence and incidence, as those two are the very commonly used measures. And it's like understanding of, just for a revision, I'll just tell you about what is incidence and what is prevalence. Then in measures of effect or association, as I told you earlier, we try to identify the risk factors, and we try to quantify the relationship between the exposure and the disease, making mathematical comparison. And in terms of effect, measures of effect, we have different measures of measuring the effect. So measures of frequencies, I'll be mostly telling about incidence and prevalence today. And in measures of effect, I'll be talking about relative risk and odds ratio. Hazard ratio will be dealing when we take the survival analysis topic. And then number needed to treat and harm we'll be doing when we do the clinical trials topic. And risk difference, absolute risk reduction, that also comes under more or less in that part we'll be explaining it to you. But here, today's focus will be in association. It will be mostly on relative risk and odds ratios, and also on prevalence and incidence. So these are the different measures of impact, that is attributable risk, population attributable risk, all these population attributable risk percentage, etc. Now, which are the different fractions? Before going to the measures of disease frequency, I can tell you about the common fractions that we use when we calculate these frequency measures. That one is called as ratio. So when we say ratio, ratio is a fraction in which numerator is not a part of denominator. For example, when I say the fetal death ratio, it means we calculate it by fetal deaths by live births. So that means the live births is an independent factor and fetal deaths is different. So there are two different, they are in numerator and denominator are not, they are not part of each other. So that's why it is called as a ratio. So fetal deaths are not included among the live births by definition, and hence it is a ratio. Now, when we have a numerator is a part of denominator, then it is called as a proportion. For example, fetal deaths by all births, if you take, then that becomes a proportion. So that means the proportion is expressed usually in terms of percentage, and it is like a fraction. You take fetal deaths divided by the total, then that is called as a percentage or proportion. So proportion multiplied by 100 will be a percentage. Then we have rate. So what is rate? So ideally, when we have a proportion and we may, which that changes over time, that is called as a proportion. For example, we can say proportion is like the rate is like the number of cases or events occurring during a given time period divided by number of cases of population at risk during the same time period. For example, if I want to calculate the cesarean rate for a month of July in a particular hospital, so the numerator is the number of C-section performed in that month divided by denominator is the total number of women who delivered in July. So this total number is the crux. So this July here, it relates to the time duration. So here, as per the definition, proportion in which the change is over time, that is considered to be rate. So this is a rate, 23 by 149 into 100. So numerator is how many C-sections happen divided by total number of women who delivered during that month. So that period is important there, and that's why it is called as a rate. So the cesarean rate for that month of July was 15.4%. Then we have the most commonly used measure of disease frequency, that is prevalence rate. So what is prevalence? So prevalence, as you know, it's a number of total number of old and new cases that we study when we talk about prevalence. And basically there are two types of prevalence. One is called as point prevalence and the other one is called as period prevalence. Now what is point prevalence? Point prevalence means proportion of individuals in a specified population at risk who have the disease of interest at a given point of time. So it refers to the prevalence measured at a particular point of time and it's a proportion of persons with a particular disease or attribute on a particular date. So if I say it's as a point prevalence means it includes both old and new cases divided by the population at that particular time period multiplied by a constant, usually 10 raised to n, that is 10 raised to 100 or 1000, like that. Usually prevalence is expressed in terms of multiplied by 100. Now what is point prevalence? Point prevalence is like proportion of individuals the proportion of individuals in a specified population at risk who have the disease of interest over a specified period of time. Like for example, here you can say, I can just tell you, like if you have you are measuring it over the prevalence over a particular year. Annual prevalence rate you can calculate, or a lifetime prevalence you can calculate. So there the time is involved, and you are looking at the persons with a particular disease at a particular time interval. That is the difference. Whereas in the point prevalence, we are not considering the time interval. We are considering at that particular point of time how many are infected or how many had that particular disease. So let's see the example to look at the difference between the point prevalence and period prevalence. So point prevalence is here in this example, you can say that there are 150 persons, they were followed up for over 1 year period. So initially at the start of follow-up, 25% already had the disease. That 25 includes both old and new cases. And then during the course of follow-up, 15 more new cases developed disease. So the point prevalence is how many were initially having the disease at the start of the study, that is 25, divided by how many were there at the beginning, that is 150. So 25 by 150 will be 17%. Whereas period prevalence is you add the already existing number, that is 25 at the start of follow-up, plus how many new cases has developed during the year, that is 25 plus 50. So it's actually 50 here. I have just made a small mistake. It's 50. So 25 plus 50 divided by 150, that is 27%. So that's how we calculate the period prevalence. So the difference is in period prevalence, we consider the time interval, whereas in point prevalence, at that particular, it's like cross section. At that particular point, how many had the disease. Now coming to incidence rate. So incidence rate is actually the new cases of the disease developing over the specified period of time in a population at risk throughout the interval. So here it is a rate. So the rate means the period is very important here. So the time is a factor that we consider here, and also the differences we are considering only new cases here. So the incidence rate is calculated by number of new cases of the disease in a given time period divided by total population percent time at risk during the study. Now, what is a percent time? Percent time means it's a sum of the time actually, if you can say that one person was followed up for 1 year, the second person was followed up for 2 years. So likewise, each person was followed up for different time periods. So the incidence rate will be the total person years is calculated by summing up all that, how many length of follow-up is summed up, and that becomes the total person time at risk. And there are different methods in which person time at risk is being calculated. So, sorry. Yeah. So there are different methods in which the person time at risk can be calculated. So let's look at this example. Here in a diabetic study, there were 218 women and who were diabetic, and 3,823 women who were non-diabetic. And by the end of the study, 72 in the diabetic women and 511 in the non-diabetic women had died. So the diabetic women were observed for almost these many years. That means the total duration is like 1,862 years. And the non-diabetic women were followed up for 36,653 person years. Now we have to calculate the incidence rate. So the incidence rate is for the diabetic women is 72 divided by how many person years of follow-up, that is 1,862. So that becomes here the 38.6 deaths. This is how we calculate the incidence rate of death for the particular group. Same way for the non-diabetic group also, we have to calculate the incidence rate of death by considering how many new cases were developed divided by how many person time they were followed up. Now, what are the uses of incidence and prevalence? So incidence is generally used for acutely acquired diseases, and prevalence is more for permanent state conditions or attributes of ill health. Incidence is more important when thinking of etiology of the disease disorders, and prevalence are thinking of societal burden of disorders, including the cause, resources consumed, and the result of disorders. So incidence always requires duration and prevalence, may or may not. So if in calculating the incident, we should know the duration of follow-up, or what was at least at the start, in the start of follow-up. Cumulative incident can be calculated if you know how many are present at the start of follow-up. So there are different ways in which incidence can be calculated, but duration is important when we calculate incidence. Whereas prevalence, if you are calculating point prevalence, you need not consider duration. But when you are calculating period prevalence, you may have to calculate the length of, based on the length of follow-up, or what yearly prevalence or annual prevalence, you have to calculate that. So in incidence, the unit of analysis is event, and in prevalence, it is the person. And prevalence can never exceed 100%. Usually we say the prevalence rate is 80%, 90%, like that. We can usually express that in terms of percentage. Whereas incidence, it can exceed 100 in the sense that some illness like for example, influenza or cold, the number of episodes, if we count, it can go beyond 100% also. Then incidents generally require an initial disease-free interval before counting starts. And because incidence is measured only at those risk, at the person who are at risk is being considered when we calculate the incidence. Now, what are the uses of incidence density and cumulative incidence? So these are the two terms that we usually use when we talk about incidence. Incidence density and cumulative incidence, it's nothing but it's like both are incidents only. But in incidence, in cumulative incidence, we consider the people who are at risk at the beginning of the interval, whereas in incidence density, the denominator is how long we are following them, the person years of follow-up. That is the difference, and both are used in most of the situations. Now, the relationship between the incidence and prevalence, you all must be knowing. So in order to, when we talk about the relationship between the incidence and prevalence, if it is in a steady state and if the population is stable, prevalence rate is equal to incidence rate into duration of disease. And these are the other frequently used measures of morbidity, or measures of frequency measures. And there are measures of mortality also, like birth rate, death rate, all those comes under the measures of mortality. But here in measures of morbidity, there are other measures of frequency measures, like incidence proportion, secondary attack rate, then point prevalence we already discussed, incidence rate also we already discussed. So these are the commonly used measures of morbidity or measures of frequency. Now coming to measures of association. So measures of association, before going to measures of association, we have to think of two important terms. One is risk and the other one is odds. So risk and odds are very commonly used terms, and it carries a different meaning. So first let's understand what is risk, and then let's understand what is odds. So the risk is the chance of something happening divided by the chance of all things happening. I'll tell you an example later. Just first understand the definition. Now the odds is the chance of something happening divided by the chance of something not happening. So if you look at the difference between the two definitions, one is something happening by all things happening. That's all possible events. Whereas odds is something happening by chance if not happening. So let's look at the example here. I'll just take you to the example directly. You can see this example here. There are three interventions, that is 1, 2, and 3. And this is the outcome, death and survival. That is in the first intervention group, how many deaths and how many survived. In the second intervention group, how many deaths, how many survive. And in the third, same way, how many deaths, how many survive. Now, what is risk? So when we say risk, it means 30 divided by how many total intervention group, how many total are there? That is 100 were there. So the risk is actually, if I to have told you about chance of all things happening is in the denominator. So that means it is out of the total, the number of people, that is how many event has happened, 30 deaths, that is the event here, out of the total, that is 100. So that means the risk is 30%. Now coming to the second odds, if you see, it is 30 divided by, it is like happening versus not happening. So the event happening, the probability the event happening is 30 divided by not happening is 70. So that means it is 0.43. So this is actually usually risk and odds is expressed in terms of probability, not in terms of percentage. So that's why I'm telling 0.30, 0.43. So this is the difference. I hope you understood the difference between the risk and odds. And this is a very interesting study. If you have time, you can go through this common pitfalls in statistical analysis, odds versus risk. This is a good paper which you can go through to understand the, it's a very simple paper, odds versus risk. So you can go through this as well. So I hope you understood the difference between the risk and odds. So the risk of the disease means the proportion of persons in the group who develop the disease over the time period, or it is like an individual probability of developing the disease over a particular time. Risk is a proportion, but an odds is a ratio. So odds is a special type of ratio. For example, when we say the risk is 1 in 5, that is 20 among 100. The odds is 1 into 5 means 20 compared to 80. So that is the difference. So now let's look at what is relative risk. So relative risk is actually defined as the cumulative incidence among exposed divided by cumulative incidence among or unexposed group. So these terms are like risk ratios, rate ratios, relative risk, all these are used synonymously. And this is the interpretation of risk. So if the risk ratio or the relative risk is 1, we can say that there is no difference between the exposed and the unexposed group. If it is greater than 1, there's an increased risk of outcome in the exposed group. If it is less than 1, there's a reduced risk in the exposed group. So if we take this example, there are 100 people who are at risk, 50 are men and 50 are women. In those, if 15 men and 5 women develop influenza among them, then if the relative risk of developing influenza in men compared to women is, risk among men is 15 by 50 and divided by risk among women is 5 by 50. So the risk ratio or the relative risk is 3.0. Now let's look at this example, one more example, risk ratio. So there is an, this is actually a randomized control trial in which there is treatment group, one is aspirin and another is placebo. And the related myocardiac infarction, how many had in each group is given here and how many did not have is given. So how do we calculate? So first we have to calculate the cumulative incidence. So cumulative incidence is how many develop the myocardiac infarction MI divided by the total number, that is 0.026. And here in the second placebo group, 213. So 21 divided by 1 by 79 will be the relative risk, and that is 4.2. So those who so we can say that the chance of the getting the wound infection is 4.2 times higher in those who had undergone this procedure compared to those who did not undergo this procedure. So this is how it is given here. And this is 4.2 minus 1. That is if you take the difference. If you suppose if you're doing any kind of a if you have a long-term follow data, most of the time you can in the if you go through any literature survey, any literature, you can see this kind of a comparison where the multiple exposures are being compared. So like if you have if you want to compare the multiple confounders, or we want to see the effect of confounders on the outcome, then we can actually use logistic regression methods to calculate the risk, relative risk, after adjusting for the confounder. So when we do the regression part, we will be telling more about how that is done and what are the interpretations those part will tell you during. So odds ratio is used to quantify the strength of relationship between exposure and the outcome, and this can be achieved by calculating the odds ratio. So odds ratio is also used to determine whether the independent variable or the risk factor is or a protective factor is a protective factor for the dependent variable. So this is how a 2x2 table will look like. And we have, suppose it's a case control study, we have cases with disease, without disease, and exposure present and absent. And then the odds ratio is calculated by taking the ratios of odds of exposure in the cases. We get the odds ratio. So similarly, if odds ratio ranges from 0 to 1, that usually it ranges from 0 to 1. If the odds ratio is greater than 1, it implies the independent variable is a risk factor. If that the independent variable is a protective factor, and if it is equal to 1, that means the independent variable and the dependent variable have no relationship, or they are not associated. So when we calculate the odds ratios here, for example, the odds ratio being by 35, and so that means the odds of men getting influenza is 3.9 times higher as men get. You want to find the association, and with disease, without test. So let's look at what are the assumption of chi-square test. For one of the important assumption of chi-square test is that the two variables should be measured in ordinal or nominal scale. That means basically your data should be categorical. So, and your variable should consist of two groups, two independent groups. Then the groups should not be related. For example, cases and controls, they are two independent groups. Then the third assumption and the major assumption is the frequency count for each cell of the variable has to be less than 5, or at least it has to be 5. If it is less, if it is less than 5, then we cannot use chi-square test. So if you see in this data, hope you can see this data. Yeah. So this data is an example where we have two independent variables. The independent variable is smoking. The dependent variable or the outcome variable is lung cancer. And here both are it's a categorical data, as you see, and we want to find the association. So for here, if you first look at the data, you can see these are the frequencies in each cell. So you can see that there's none of the frequencies are less than 5. Okay, so that is one thing that you should check first, because it's a large data. There's no chance of anything being less than 5. But if you're dealing with a small sample size data, there is a more chance that you might get 5 or less than 5 in any of these individual cells. So in that case, you have to check whether you can apply chi-square test or not. So I'll just tell you about expected frequency, how the calculation of chi-square is done, and then I'll tell you what if this assumption is not met. That means, what if the cell frequency is not, if it is less than 5, then how to go about it, that I'll tell you later. So for the time being, we don't have anything less than 5 in any of these individual cells. So we'll just see how to calculate the association here. So these the numbers which are marked in red, these are called as observed frequencies. Observed frequency means from the study, we have found that among the lung cancer total 235, 218 are smokers. So that means this what we have observed or got from the research, what we have done. So that's why it is called as observed frequencies. Then we have to calculate expected frequencies for calculating the chi-square. So expected frequencies, I'll tell you in the next few slides, coming few slides, I'll explain about expected frequencies. But first you should understand these are called as the observed frequency, what we have got from our study. So here we have the null hypothesis, as I told you in the last class. In any testing procedure, here we are trying to find an association, and here there's qualitative variables. So it's a non-parametric test. Chi-square is actually a non-parametric test. And here, since we are doing a testing procedure to find the association, we have to first find out what is our hypothesis and state it. So the null hypothesis is that there is no significant association between smoking and lung cancer. And alternate hypothesis is that there is a significant association between smoking and lung cancer. And then we have to set the level of significance. Usually, as a conventional rule, we take as 5%. And then we have to make the test statistic. We have to calculate the test statistic. So as I told you, it depends in the last class. It depends on what variable you have got, what categories you're comparing, what types of variable that we have to decide the test statistic. Since here it's a categorical data, and we are finding out the association, it's a non-parametric test, so we use a chi-square test. And the equation is observed frequencies minus expected frequencies divided by expected frequencies. So, as you have seen, as you can see in the formula, the chi-square test statistic is based on the difference between what is actually observed in the data and what it would be expected if there was truly no relationship between the variable. So that is why we are taking this expected frequency. So what is expected frequency? So for example, here the hypothesis is that there is no association between lung cancer and smoking. So if truly there was no relationship between lung cancer and smoking, then what would be the numbers in these marked cells? So that's called as expected frequency. Okay, so suppose there was no relationship, truly there was no relationship, then what, or no association, then what would have been the situation? What would have been the values then? That is called as expected frequencies. So now we have to calculate the expected frequencies. So in order to calculate the expected frequencies, first you have to, there's an equation that is, here I can tell you. Row total multiplied by column total divided by grand total. That's how we calculate the expected frequency. So you can see this is the observed frequency, that is 218, 17, 428 and 130 are the observed frequencies. Now, since the equation says the difference between observed and expected by expected, we have to calculate the expected frequency. So in order to calculate the expected frequency, equation is row total, that is corresponding to 218, the row total is 235, multiplied by 147 divided by the grand total, that is 793. So I'll repeat the equation, that is expected frequency is given by row total multiplied by column total divided by grand total. So this is how we calculate the expected frequency. So here you can get you have got 43.56 as the expected frequency. Like that, for the second cell also, you have to calculate the expected frequency. So here the observed is 17. So what would be the expected frequency if there was no association? That's what you're calculating when we take expected frequency. So it's here 191.53. That is row total is 235 multiplied by column total 646 divided by 793. So that's how we calculate the expected frequencies for all the corresponding for all the four cells corresponding for all the four cells for, corresponding expected values are calculated. So this is how the final table will look like. So observed is what we have got from our study. Expected is what we have calculated from the equation, that is row total multiplied by column total divided by grand total. So this is how we calculate the expected frequency. Then finally we take the difference between the observed and expected, and then we calculate the chi-square value. And this chi-square value is compared with the table value of chi-square. So in the last class, I have told you if the calculated value is greater than the table value, we reject the null hypothesis. So here the calculated value is 2.06 and the table value, it is 3.84. So it will be given in any of the textbooks or any of the online also you will get. If you just type table value of chi-square, you will get the whole table. So from that you can find it is 3.84. If it is a 2 by 2 table, it is always 3.84. That means if it has 2 rows and 2 columns, the table value is 3.84 only. Then we have to conclude. So how to conclude? Because the calculated value is greater than the table value, we reject the null hypothesis and we say that there is a significant association between lung cancer and smoking. So this is the procedure of manually how we calculate the chi-square. Now the same thing, and how the same from the same table we can calculate the odds ratios also. For example, in this study, if you want to calculate the odds of this data, you can just calculate by multiplying 218 into 130 divided by AD by BC. Okay, so this 218 into 130 divided by 17 into 428, you can calculate the odds ratios. So same thing I'm going to demonstrate using the SPSS to show you how the results would look like. So I hope you can see the SPSS window right now. So I'm going to open one data here.
Yes.
So we go to Excel file. I'm going to open Excel now. I'm going to take the data from Excel. So this is my data. So this is the data that I've got. So it has got many variables like age, sex, diabetic mellitus, DM, hypertension, dyslipidemia, CAD, all those things. So here I'm just quickly going to show you how to calculate the association. Suppose I want to find the association between, say, CAD and hypertension. Okay, CAD and hypertension. Then I have to go to analyze descriptive statistics. So here there is an option cross tabs. So you have to choose cross tabs. If you are calculating the association, you have to go for cross tabs. So take CAD in row. Sorry, CAD in column, hypertension in row. Then cells, you have to choose. Here you can see there are options: observed, expected. So if you just give observed, it will show the actual values in the data, how it is actually there. If you want the expected values to be displayed, it will give you the expected value. So right now I'm not clicking the, not choosing that. Then I'm just choosing the percentages here. Suppose I want the row percentage, I just choose the row percentage, then continue. Then in statistics, if you click on statistics, you have to go to chi-square. And here there's one more option called as risk. So this risk actually, okay, I'll just choose risk, and then I'll tell you, this is actually the odds ratio. The risk, what you see here, it's nothing but the odds. That is what the odds ratios that we get. Then continue, click OK. So this is the output window you can see. So suppose this is hypertension, yes, and this is hypertension, no. That is 1 and 2, and this is CAD, yes, and CAD, no. Yes and no is 1 and 2 here, because we have given a code, it is showing as 1 and 2. Okay, so suppose if you give a label, then it will display as yes and no. Since I have not done that, it is showing as 1 and 2. So for the time being, I'll just leave it like that. Okay. So let's see the table first. So here you can see among those who had hypertension, that is 39 had hypertension, out of which 24 had a CAD. So you can say that 61.5% had CAD. Those who did not have hypertension, among them only 37 had CAD. So that is 33%. So in chi-square, what actually we are doing is we are testing for the association, right? We are testing whether hypertension and CAD, whether there's an association between hypertension and CAD. So what you have to do first is you have to check the percentages here. So if you see here, the percentages of those who had CAD was more among those who had CAD was more among the hypertensive as compared to those who did not have hypertension. So 61 versus 33. So that itself is actually a huge difference in terms of percentage, right? So if you see the Pearson's chi-square value, this 4.34 is what we calculate using the test statistic. As I told you in the last, in the PPT, using the equation what we calculate, this is the 4.34 is the test statistic value. And this is the p-value, that is 0.37. So 0.37 is a p-value. So this will tell you whether it is statistically significant or not. So here we can say that the difference is statistically significant because p-value is less than 0.05. So we can say that there is an association. So there's an association between hypertension and development of CAD. So this is how we have to look. These are the main features when it comes to chi-square analysis. And one more thing which I would like to mention is, suppose if the expected count is less than 5. So how do we look? As I told you, if there is an expected count of less than 5 in any of those cells, then we cannot use chi-square. We have to use another test which is called as Fisher's exact test. So let's see how we can, let me check if I can show you that option as well. So here I hope you understood that how to check for the association.
Excuse me.
Yes.
If the responses in the variables are more than 2, means apart from yes and no or present and absent, we are having more than 2 responses. For example, it's an ordinal data. Suppose there are 4 categories or 5 categories. In that case, what test we would be using to see the association?
If you have more than 2 categories also, you can use chi-square.
We can use chi-square for more than.
For example, I want to compare CAD with BMI categories. I have suppose 4 categories. So then I can just still I can use a chi-square and do the test, do the calculation. Okay.
नहीं, but in that how it
हाँ
would we correlate it with the कि अगर significance आता है, suppose if significance
हाँ
is
हाँ
there,
हाँ
then
हाँ
how we are going to interpret it in the term कि among these 5 categories how will we be correlated?
You're asking that in terms of significance, there will be only one p value that you might get. So you can say whether there is an association or not. That's all.
Hey, suppose
Huh.
I'm CAD with BMI. Suppose okay. Now CAD is present or absent. It will be it will have just 2 responses. While BMI we can divide it into more than 2. Okay.
Huh. Okay.
So
Okay.
now if the significance is coming as it is less than 0.05. It means CAD and BMI are having an association with each other.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
But
that's
if
right.
we
Huh.
want to grade that with which category it is having a higher significance, lower BMI or moderate or higher one, then how will we interpret that?
You see, there are 2 ways of doing it. That one is you just look at the overall association in the first step, as you told. Overall, we can say that whether there is an association or not. Then, if you want, suppose if I say higher BMI is related to more chance of
Yes.
having CAD.
Yes.
So in that case, what you have to do is you have to keep one as a reference. For example, those who having lower BMI, you have to keep as a reference, and then you have to compare the other categories. Okay.
Okay. You are saying
Huh.
that after
Then you can calculate the exact risk. Then you can calculate the exact risk and check the odds ratios also.
Hey, you are saying that initially we can do it for multiple groups, but once we have seen an association, then those 5 responses will again have to categorize into 2 categories, lower and higher, and then
Yes,
we can
yes.
see that you are saying. No? And suppose we are having more than 2 groups in a data. Suppose in CAD also we are seeing men and female, male and female. Okay, in CAD also there are 2 groups, 1 and 2 means male and female with or without CAD, and then we are comparing it with a group which is again having more than responses. In that case, what test will be using?
See, you can use odds ratios itself in that case also. There is another odds ratios that we usually calculate. Not
Where
able to
does
memorize it.
McNemar's test?
No, McNemar is for group. If you have related categories, then you can use McNemar's pre-post like that. Related categories, then you can use McNemar.
So if we are having.
So if you can stratify the data according to male and female, and then you can calculate the odds ratios. That is also possible. I'll just tell you about which test, what is the name of that odds ratio. I can just tell you in 2 minutes. I'm not able to memorize right now. I'll tell you. Okay, so that way you can calculate, yes. Otherwise, if you have multiple confounding variables, you have to use logistic regression and then see the effect.
No, I didn't got the point actually. I'll just give you an example in that case. Suppose we are trying to see that what is the response of chemotherapy in breast cancer patient. Okay, and the response is in more than 2 categories. Okay. No response, partial response, and complete response. And the patients are in 2 groups, less than 40 years and more than 40 years. Now, how we are going to see the association? Because patients are also in 2 groups, less than 40, more than 40. Which one is having better response or what response? And the chemotherapy response is also having more than 2 responses. So how are we going to analyze that data? What test we would use for that?
Like you're asking if you want to see the 3 categories you want to compare. In that case, you're asking the outcome variable has 3 categories.
both the variables are having, there are two variables, one is
See the
age and the
yeah.
other is response, and both these variables are having more than one category. In that
Okay.
case, how will we compare?
Still, you can use chi-square test itself for association as a first step. Okay.
Okay.
This actually, the procedure of analysis goes step by step. So first, actually, for association, we can use chi-square test itself. Irrespective whether it is 2 by 2 or 2 by 3 table or 2 by 4 table, you can use chi-square itself for association. Okay. In the second step, if you have a if you want to do, you can actually split the data according to particular characteristics, for example, male, female. And then again, you can check for association. That is stratified analysis. That is one way of looking for confounders also. The third is the regression analysis. So if you have a 3 category outcome dependent variable, then you have to go for a multinomial regression or something like that.
Okay.
If it is a 2 dependent variable category, then you can use a logistic regression. So exact odds you will get, that will answer your research hypothesis. So here you don't worry about here in chi-square. When we do, we are not looking at causation, or we are not looking at the strength of association. We are just testing the hypothesis whether there is an association or not. So this actually is a very kind of weak test, I would say. So if you want to prove your strength of association, you want to look at the exposure and the outcome in terms of the strength, then you have to further do regression analysis. You have to compute the adjusted odds ratios or adjusted relative risk, and then only we can interpret. So then only you will be able to answer it in a complete way. Okay. So there are so many things that are involved in it. Hope I have answered your question. Can I go further?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Okay, then actually this as how I remember, which when we talked about stratification, when you asked about male female, same way, I'll just show you an example here, then I'll come towards. So I'm going to data split file based on gender, compare groups, click OK. So I'm going to compare the same thing with respect to male and female. So like this, you will get separately. Okay, if you just give that split file option, you will get the association separately in males, whether there is an association. For example, here in females, it is showing an association, not showing, both in males and females. When we split, it is not showing any association separately. That means gender asset has no association is what it is showing. So here, suppose you are stratifying, and if you are calculating the odds ratios, you can use, instead of using the normal odds ratio, there is a mental Hansen's odds ratio which you can calculate when we are stratifying and calculating. That was one of the questions which you had asked. I think that time I couldn't memorize the name. So that is mental Hansen's odds ratio that you can calculate. Okay, so this is how the split can be done. Then I'll just quickly take you back to the same first example again. So I hope you understood about the association. So here we are just merely looking at the hypertension CAD, whether there is an association or not. So now we want to see whether what is the strength of association. So we look at the odds. So when we look at the odds, See, the odds of association is the odds of hypertension 1 versus 2. If you see here, the odds value is 3.2. Okay, so that we can say that those who have hypertension those who have higher hypertension have 3.2 times higher risk of CAD compared those who have odds. The odds of CAD is 3.2 times higher in the odds of CAD is 3.2 times higher in those who had hypertension compared to those who do not have hypertension. So that's how we estimate the risk using odds ratios. So I'll just go back to the PPT again. Do you want me to stop here? You have any questions in this part? Any question? Okay, so I'll just go ahead since we are running out of time. Okay. Fine. So we talked about the odds ratio. So this is a situation where we have same analysis. So we did a chi-square test and then we looked at the association. That's what then we looked at the odds ratios and how odds ratios can be interpreted. Now coming to when you have multiple factors, for example, here we have various factors like obesity, gender, presence of diabetic cholesterol, age, etc., that might cause myocardiac infarction. So we want to see, we want to know which are the important factors among these that can lead to myocardiac infarction, because there can be a confounding effect. So we have to see that after controlling for the effect of a particular factor, then what would be the odds. So that is why we calculate the adjusted odds ratios. So unadjusted odds ratios is what we calculated just now. So there we consider only one factor at a time. For example, gender myocardiac infarction, or hypertension myocardiac infarction. So there we have considered only one factor or one variable at a time. So it's a it's called as unadjusted odds ratios. Now when we have we have to see whether all these factors together, if you take after controlling for the effect of one variable, then what will be the odds. Then that is more valid, right? Because we are considering all the possible factors or variables together and then looking at the effect. So that's called as adjusted odds ratios. So usually when we report in any studies, we give you both unadjusted or adjusted odds ratios. And adjusted odds ratios are considered to be gives better evidence as compared to unadjusted odds ratios. So since we are running out of time, I'll just summarize what we discussed today. So in today's presentation, we discussed about what are the different frequency measures and measures of association. So in frequency measures, we discussed about prevalence and incidence. And in association measures, we discussed about odds ratios and relative risk, and also chi-square test, how chi-square test can be done. And one small thing which I forgot was to tell you about the assumption. So I'll just finish it off in 2 minutes and I'll just wind up my presentation. So in this situation, as I told you, we don't have any cell frequencies, observed cell frequencies less than 5. Suppose if we have any cell frequencies less than 5, expected cell frequencies less than 5, like for example, I am doing here descriptive statistics, cross tabs, statistics. I'm going to the same option again. And here in cells, I told you that we can calculate the expected frequencies also here. So I'm just clicking on expected, continue, okay. So split file is on. Analyze descriptive statistics, crosstabs. So I've just clicked on the expected frequencies also to show you how to check that assumption. So here, if you see, the expected count has come. Before it was not there. Now, since I have chosen that option, it has come. So you can see here, the expected cell count is 20.2, 18.9, 10.9, 10.1. So here there is none of the expected cell frequencies are less than 5. So here we can use chi-square with confidence. There's no doubt that the assumption is valid and we can use chi-square. And suppose if any of these expected cell counts are less than 5, then you have to go for a Fisher's exact test. So you can see in the same table below here, we have the Fisher's exact test value also. So we have to take Fisher's exact test value in case if you have any expected cell count less than 5. So that is then only the you cannot use a chi-square test in such situation. The assumption of chi-square won't be met if you have any expected cell count less than 5. So I think with that I'll stop today's presentation. Yes, many are requesting for the PPTs. We will be sharing the PPTs also along with the notes that the small handouts which we have prepared for everyone, so that will help you in learning or some in understanding more concepts. So you can go through it in detail and you can memorize what we have learned. You have any other questions, please let me know. Or I can wind up today's presentation. Please let me know if you have any more questions.